So the sponsorship and how it's supposed to help us change the rugby scene.
Okay, we have 37.5 million coming directly to Kenya Rugby Union. That's cash. We've agreed to put 20 million into Safari Sevens. So this money will basically go into the event organization. I don't want to talk much about Safari Sevens because we're going to have a separate launch for it. Then we'll tell you who's coming, which teams have confirmed. But we're going to have a bumper Safari Sevens. That you can take to the bank. It's going to be different.
For this time, we have seen an allocation even for the women rugby for a very long time. I think we've seen them struggle and even beg to have even funds to prepare for the competition. Again, let's talk about how now you have decided that finally the women should also be considered in terms of having some of these deals, to be part of some of these deals.
I think the women rugby is big. You've just seen the tournaments we've been having in the country, and clubs are now picking it up. Secondly, our national team has done very well. We were in South Africa a few weeks ago. We didn't win that match, but we played very well in that competition, and it holds a lot of promise. Sponsors are beginning to recognize that. Let's not forget, when you see Kenya Sevens have big sponsors, they've been at it for 20 years. So they've built their reputation, they've built a very good brand, they've built loyalty. The women game is just starting. So we've started with this. The shirt is still open. We still don't have a front of shirt sponsor. We have Bidco, who have been supporting the women. And we need our women to play more competitions so that they can really achieve their full potential.
I think now that we've mentioned about the shirt and where the sponsor's name is supposed to appear, let's talk about now where is the Tusker name supposed to appear in terms of all the different teams that are going to be sponsored.
So in both cases, they're going to be on the short. On the short, you're allowed 2 sponsors by World Rugby. So Tusker is taking 1 slot on the short. We still have 1 other slot on the short, and we still have the front of the shirt, which are open. And we are talking to sponsors about them. So I'm sure this will also kick off very favorable. Even the discussions we're having going forward will be more positive as we go forward. Absolutely. I think rugby has had a history of strong success on the world stage. It helps that our Kenya Sevens team on the men has been call it the flagship. So by being on that World Series for nearly 20 years now and competing at that level, it has really raised the awareness of the game. Sponsors want visibility. Visibility comes through television. So if you play and you don't have the game on television, it's very hard to attract sponsors. So it follows that as the product is very visible on television, then more sponsors come in. Because what does the sponsor want? He wants their brand to be seen. In addition to that, we've had a lot of initiatives as Kenya Rugby Union to take the game to the grassroots. So if you look at the number of schools playing rugby, they have increased over the last, call it 15, 20 years. So now every company we've gone to talk to, you find their rugby people there, whether they played in high school or whatever, and that has built the awareness. So there's also a lot of support for the game from people who've played in the past. The old boys, the not so old boys, they're all saying, no, rugby is good. You heard what Mrs. Karuku said, that the fans are in large numbers and they're well behaved. And that's what we must continue to do, so that when people come and experience rugby, they live happy, they live content, there are no issues. And rugby is a family sport, and that's why even the women are playing. Our clubs have done a lot of work. If you look at the age-grade programs that they've been running, taking rugby into schools. So this is an effort by a whole host of people, not just we at the board. And we feel that is why a lot more corporates are seeing rugby and coming in. If you look at Prince Lou, for instance, there were a lot of new sponsors who've not been in rugby, who are local Nakuru sponsors. And that's what we want. We want the game to be owned by all the corporates. It's not just for the very big companies. Even at a local level, those corporates can get involved and put in what they can. And then there's the tax benefit now, which everywhere we've gone, we've been telling people about the tax benefit, and many sponsors want to put in more money if they can get that benefit.
The shorter version is winning in terms of attracting sponsors, but I think the longer version, we cannot say that it's at the same level, the shorter version, maybe because probably in terms of the packaging, it's so different with how it's packaged with the shorter version. But how do we make sure that even the longer version is winning in terms of bringing on board sponsors?
You have to go to the global stage. Let's not lie to ourselves. We must do everything to get into the World Cup. We must. Because if you look, Rugby Sevens got its break by going into the World Cup, by going into the World Series. playing the likes of New Zealand. The first years we struggled. But once we got our footing, then now we're there. And that's why the sponsors come. And also now, once people see the global product, that's why they come. And so we're putting in very strong structures to ensure that we can go to France 2023. And it's an ongoing conversation, and you'll see a lot of announcements around what we're going to do differently, some of the initiatives we're doing to build a good base to take us forward. Yeah.
I know, Gangi, you have not had a chance to talk about the initiative of spreading the game to the grassroots level, going to Kisumu. The first one was exemptional. We are going to Nakuru, and we even plan to have more longer version games being played in different towns across the country. Let's talk about how this, and probably it's another creative way of making sure that the sponsor get the value of his money.
Absolutely. I know there was a lot of criticism at the time we awarded the game to Kisumu. But anyone who came to that game in Kisumu will tell you it was a watershed moment. That, together with taking the Kenya Cup final to Kakamega, we could have said as a board, no, let's have it in Nairobi, it's convenient for us. But working with the club, Cabras, the final was in Kakamega. And I think at that final there were maybe close to 10,000 people. Now, that's what you want. You want masses of Kenyans coming to the game. So even today, when you talk to Kenyan sponsors or corporates about Kenya Cup, and they see, but you had 10,000 people at the game, that's what they want. Even when now you go to the television and the game is broadcast, that's what sponsors want. So we will continue to spread the game across the country. We are open. We now have dates for some of the assignments next year. We are looking for additional assignments. We'd like to play a test match in Mombasa. In fact, we must play a test match in Mombasa. We must. It's going to happen. We must play a test match somewhere in eastern Kenya. Whether it's Machakos or Meru, we must play a test match there. We are now going to Nakuru. We'd like Nakuru to be a success, and then we go back there. Nairobi will always have at least one test match. Kisumu, Kakamega will have a test match. So that this game is for all Kenyans. We are heading to 50 million people.
Even in the past regime, we had issues in terms of some of the debts and how probably you're working to make sure that we settle them and we have a clean KRA. No, EY has come on board to just make sure that everything that comes from the sponsor goes to what is supposed to, what's supposed to handle. Just about the initiative and maybe how you want to make sure at least EY and any corporate that comes on board, everything that they bring on table is supposed to go to where it was written. In terms of the script, what is written is supposed to have it, even on the field. Whether it's 50 million, it's supposed to go down to where we had planned for it.
That's a very good question. I think what KRU is going to do, it will also generate its own monies out of these events. And that then gives you the flexibility. There's no sponsor who's going to pay for our legacy debt. But for instance, if we have, and we will have a very successful Safari Sevens, we are envisaging having a surplus. Now you see with that, we can be able to restructure our debt. We are also talking to government and to World Rugby. There are certain debts which maybe they can come in and support. Because again, if you look at where have these debts come from? They've come from the assignments the national team has been having. Yeah, it's monies which have not been paid either for facilities or maybe there's still some arrears, etc. But these monies were spent for the game. So, but it's impossible today to tell Tusker, give us 20 million, we take 5, and I mean, they're like, but why should I pay for your past sins? But by creating a good Safari Sevens, we'll be able to generate surpluses, which we can go ahead. We have other announcements we'll be making even about how we want to redo our merchandising strategy. And you see, this then puts us in a very good position to raise other money. We can't just rely on sponsorship. Sponsorship is going to be has to be a small part of our revenue. So it's the other revenue lines to grow. Were you at Christie's?
Yes, I am.
You're at Christie's. Did you dance to Calligraph Jones?
I did.
Yes, so who paid for that? It's Tusker. You saw that setup of the village. It was excellent, wasn't it? We felt like what Kenya Open Golf with high standards, etc. So Tusker paid for all the entertainment, that setup, the music equipment. There was a lot of advertising on radio, etc. I estimate, they have not told me, but I estimate the investment on just that Driftwood event is about 4 million shillings. Then look at, they did that in Driftwood, they did that in Nakuru, they did that in Christie's. So already that is 20 million gone. just to create a nice experience for you to enjoy yourself. So that's where the money is going.
And is that a gang?